But also something I do like to see from them a lot is once you're behind with your team, identify really well what you could do in specific fights. So once you're behind, it's really hard to find the small gaps where you could maybe initiate a couple of those plays that are left. This also gives us a little bit of time to take a look at Kaufland. What have they done well in game one? But before we get there, we already noticed that the pick and ban phase is initiated. So Rev, for Kaufland, what do you feel like are the strong aspects of that team?
Well, they do have some good individual players. They do have quite a bit of an experience lead in the bot lane. I don't want to say lead actually because you're playing versus Crowny and Reckless, and if you play into most CRL teams, you'll be like, okay, we are the experienced guys, but now it's kind of weird. But they are players who have been around quite alone. I remember Justla, he's been playing ever since like, he was in LEC or yeah, it was LEC 2019.
XL.
So XL indeed. So they know the game, they know all of those metas, they know how to go deep into their champion pools, and maybe they should try and just hit Los Ratones with the head. If you're will not struggle in the early game, why not play towards the mid game and late game from the draft?
Yeah, fair. By the way, Temporal, we noticed in there's just a Poppy, like a small answer for the engage with Wukong, of course. Then in the meantime, there's still a Wei and an Ezreal, quite some long-range champions, which could stick quite some room in between themselves and other players. So for now, only 3 champions on both sides at the moment. Temporal, how do you feel about the 6 champions we've seen thus far?
As with the win over KHK, last time around, a lot of impetus on Nemesis, who's also been forced into blue on a character that has had 3 thematic counters against it. The Azir does not want to be engaged upon. He wants to shuffle. He wants to have the command. He doesn't want to deal with long range. A difficult position for Lost Returns. At least you can flex the Poppy around. Baus does play it. Of course, Reckless and Velia are not above it. Second round of bans, looking towards not giving a Braum over that would allow Reckless to stand in between this artillery and a carry. For Lost Returns, they're shoring up topside slightly. Renekton might lean towards this Poppy being up there on the top side.
Yeah, and also there is some insurance policy because we've seen Lost Ratones make some mistakes in the earlier stage of the game, but there is a Jhin and there's an Azir, so there's quite some scaling on the left-hand side of the pick and ban phase at this moment. Rev, the final bans are coming in. What do you feel like should be the focus points of Lost Ratones if they want to drag this series to at least a 1-1?
I mean, I think that they need to double down on that range, right? You are trying to outrange the enemy team. The only thing that really are trying to show is the Hui right now. Of course, yeah, Ezreal, huge range, but Jhin doesn't lag behind on that. So why wouldn't you just keep popping the jungle, keep trying to disrupt the Wukong, and then, I don't know, play Nico for the support? Oh no, you banned Nico. Why are you banning Nico yourself? That's actually kind of weird for me.
It did not go well versus Barcelona.
I mean, okay, but are you that insecure of a team?
It's looking more and more like it with every passing day, Rev. The Lost Returns' own identity has gone a little by the wayside, and I am not super impressed with their efforts so far to restore it. However, nothing like a little bit of pressure at the bottom of a series.
But I do have to say, for Kaufland, it feels like a pretty hard engage if you want to single someone out. So you have a Leona ultimate, of course, but then if you want to follow in, you need your dashes, like Wukong and Leona in on itself. So it feels like Poppy could be a giant pick, especially during the later stage of those games, to prevent a couple of engages coming in. So there's quite some safety for Lost Ratones. So the insurance policy is still there. And also, if you want to have some reliable engage, there's, of course, one person with big fists. And maybe change attached to it. Ambessa is being picked in, Rev. What are the final picks for Lost Ratones right now?
I'd prefer the Vi, honestly. Of course, you're not selecting the matchup, so it could be very, very difficult, but you don't really care, right? You're Baus. You're bound to go 0-4 and then be the most useful player on the map, the Messi of League of Legends. And when I'm looking at the enemy team, they are also trying to double down on range. So if you make sure that you can engage on the enemy backlane, then the Azir can follow up, and then you can be very, very useful. Now, the Ambessa isn't a 100% sure engage ever, unless maybe it's Tracing playing her,
but
because you need some setup.
But Rev, we've seen something. There's, of course, the Shurima shuffle, but another very important shuffle is the one from Yorick. Once that one lands on the back of your head, it's time to go back to the base. We got Fenor with the Yorick in the top lane, Temporal. What could this do for the famous top lane between Baus and Fenor?
I do want to shout out quickly Wisdom nice hover on Hjarnen's Heimerdinger there. Nice homage to the Hangry Knights coach, who has faced plenty of the rats in his time throughout the LEC. Nice flash.
Yes.
The Yorick does offer a bit of an issue, and then it achieves Baus's playstyle against the character he's playing. He's going to go sides. He's going to be horrible to deal with. There is not a lot of agency for the rats to kill him outside of a very
time to go towards the predictions, guys. What's bound to happen? Temporal. What do you feel like is going to happen?
I can't believe I'm picking against the rats. I think the Hangry Knights have found their stride. They are looking to snowball through the early game. Stacks and Dragons and Venor draw people to topside.
Ref, who
I
win?
mean, I do enjoy the Hungry Knights draft way more, but I can bring myself to bet against the rats. It's going to go 1-1.
Ooh, if it's bound to the opinion of Ref, we're going to a 1-1. Los Ratones, there's no leeway. They must win this game to keep their spot in the EMEA Masters. Let's see what's bound to happen in the next upcoming match with Trajan and SIM.
Thank you, Bo. Thank you, Desk. I can't believe we're here. SIM with LR 1-0 down on the ropes here at the cusp of elimination out of the group stage.
It's kind of weird to see the Rats in this kind of a situation, right? Because normally when we see a team win EMEA Masters, we always have some really big expectations from them in the next EMEA Masters as well. And in this situation, they're also the #1 seed of their respective region. But whilst the #2 seed of the NLC North has already moved on to the next stage, it is Los Ratones who now seems to be struggling. And that's a side that we haven't seen from them thus far into like this tournament or also in the NLC. So it is really important for them to pick up their pace back again and at least try and get this back to a 1-1 situation. But with the draft, I think the desk also already touched upon it. It is going to be really difficult to get yourself set up to those points.
Minions have spawned.
LR at least were handed their first real loss from Nord Esports back in the NLC this split, and you know the Sunshine and Roses did come to a minor blip there, but they turned it around. They came back and threw out them in the finals. It seemed like the first taste of defeat had not slowed LR down, but now here they are, and we're seeing a little bit more of that inconsistency. It's not just single opponents that can take them down. The bot lane's already getting stuck into that bot side. The Ezreal knows. Jeskla, such an experienced player, knows what he can do with this champion level 1.
Yeah, we all know what an Ezreal can do with lethal tempo. He can be so dangerous already in laning phase, and I think that both him and like other streamers like Draktar have already pointed out that this champion can be so difficult to deal with. And with like the health deficit that they've also built up for them already, I'm looking towards the top side. I see that the Rebel started on his red side when it comes to the clearing, so it wouldn't even surprise me if we're going to have some 3v3 situations happen in the bot lane fairly early on, and if Jesla can already get himself at lead by then, it's going to be even worse for a champion like Jin to play from behind.
Yeah, we can see Baus already taking some punishment from Venora up here. The Yorick always oppressive, and the Balsam Bessa variable and volatile. It, at its best, and currently struggling early on right here. Of course, it does have the outplay potential later on. Baus, no stranger to early deaths, and never count this player out. You can never call a game over, no matter what the Baus' scoreline is, but certainly not the start they would maybe hope for.
I also don't want to be that person, but Baus is of course also known as a player that if he doesn't have to buy potions in his own world, then he won't, because gold efficiency is key, and if he can get to his power spikes as soon as possible, even 50 gold can make the difference. But it also means that with a really bad start like this, not having your potion available, only having the Doran Shield might prove to be maybe a little bit too greedy for what he actually would have liked to play right there. So hopefully it will not punish him too hard, but for now Venor is just playing the lane matchup a little bit better and pushing Baus into a position where fighting back is not really an option.
Yeah, I respect betting on yourself, but a gamble's a gamble. Sometimes it's just not going to come up heads, and unfortunately the Baus is going to have to give some space up in this top side. Can use the Unbested ability to dip in and out to try and pick up what CS he can, but ultimately a saved potion is not going to make up for the 9 CS down. Let's see how many he can get under the turret. This is approaching even kill threat if he places his feet wrong trying to pick up the things.
Oh, it's such a tense situation, and Baus even jumping in, knowing that he can get a shield with his W, but I don't think I would be taking this kind of a risk knowing what is on the playing field right now. Like, you are already 0-1 down against Kaufland, and you don't want to be like that player that takes that one risk that makes the early game even more difficult to play on later on. And for now it is only, of course, the lane pressure that Venor can put out to maybe contest on the top side, to maybe seek out Velia, who also has noticed that he can't really make anything happen on the bot side of the map. But it isn't really the situation that you want to be playing into right now.
Yes, of course, Poppy can get a lot of work done early on. Great base damage to work with. Will be an excellent tank as the game gets later on. And we're going to be looking out for those Keeper's Verdicts as well. Realistically, you're looking at Rabble, I suppose, as a primary target there to actually get off the backline. Leona can engage from range, but ultimately once she's in, she is going to get picked apart if there's no assistance for her. So Velia's going to have to be marking that Wukong, of course, with the invisibility, the clones jumping over walls. Very tricky to actually keep this threat out of your backline, but it's going to be essential. Nemesis and Crowny, they need to be allowed to do damage if LR are going to have a hope in these fights.
Yeah, for now it looks like the strategy for Kaufland to push the Reds a little bit more back, to play through that bot side. We've already seen that they really try to get some pressure down with Jeskla, with Vistum. For now it is Crowny, of course, pushing them back in. But when I look at the wards as well, you already see a lot of vision established in that river, control ward already put down. So there is a way for Kaufland to slowly make their way down towards this dragon, and the moment they do get their priority back on the bot lane with the better reset that they've had, then there is a possibility to just start it, and I don't really think that Los Ratones already have the resources to them to actually contest them in it. So we already see a really clear game plan coming out from Kaufland, and well, we all know the Reds for maybe struggling a little bit more in the earlier stages, and then late game we get like this Infinity Stones moment where if all of them are together, they actually get it done. But oh, we're fighting already.
Here's some early plays, an early flash engage from Reckless, and it's first blood for Crowny. Lovely setup by the Rats. They slam him against the wall and take Jesper down.
And that is something that I didn't really expect with the amount of setup that Kaufland already had. But yeah, if you're going to be greedy, I think Reckless is one of those players who will immediately know the angle to punish you. And that will then end with Jeskla, an early grave back to his fountain. But Rebel is still looking to maybe contest his dragon.
You still have Vladim down on the bot side as well. Can look to try and stifle Crowny to steal away. The Wukong walks away with the objective. Wisdom, he's going to have to walk away now. But still, so it's first blood without the extra gold. Remember, it's been stripped away from that feat of Warper, as it were. And that first dragon going over to Kaufland. So Rabble already getting one over on Velia despite losing that first kill.
Velia has to be careful. He has taken it for the fact that he didn't get the dragon, but he's now once again also being fairly greedy in the hope that he can still contest Rebel. But he has already lost half his health bar to being forced to tank that dragon and then also to leave it to the Wukong to actually be stolen. So I don't think you can waste any more time except for maybe hovering the bot lane a little bit in the case that Rebel will gank. But now it is really important for Velia to get back into the map and to get his tempo back that he lost for basically wasting so much time around the bot lane with a dragon that did go in Kaufland's favor.
Yeah, hopefully that gold onto Crowny's Jhin should give them the ability to stabilize and pretty much handle themselves for the time being. Swifties and Serrated Dirk is a lovely first back for a Jhin. Both his summoners still available, and now Crowny should be set up for a decent lane at this stage. So the rest of the map now perhaps going to be the focus for Velia. We haven't seen too much out of the mid lane on either side. Small lead for Random on the way of using that spell spamming, but we know that Nemesis so many times is the get out of jail free card for Los Ratones. They hit that Thanos Infinity Stone moment, but Nemesis is always the first trigger to be pulled, it seems. And Azir with game-changing shuffles with massive late game damage. I think it's a very good pick for LR to just bet on Nemesis and let him come to the rescue if they need it.
It's also, of course, the point that when you lock in Azir, you really want to get towards these late-game scenarios. And thus far, mostly looking at Baus, he has had a lot of space that he's just giving away to Vendor, and he's trying to make plays happen some else places, like Vistum. He already made a rotation for Grubs early on, was met by Baus, but it also meant that Baus gave a lot of, well, agency over to Vendor to just make anything happen with his Maiden, if you're gonna fight in the mid lane.
They were both standing, staring at that ward and channeling the Hex Flash like nobody's cancelling. They're still, I thought they were going to walk away from this one, but ultimately, just a couple of blows traded. No one's going to go too hard right now. Los Ratones, of course, feeling the pressure, as you mentioned. They don't want to put an early foot wrong and set themselves on the wrong path in this elimination game, whereas maybe Hangry Knights are thinking they have a chance to pull a pretty massive upset. The defending EMEA Masters champions, Los Ratones, they have them on the ropes right now.
I do see that there is a little bit of, I don't want to call it hesitation, but oh, well, we're fighting
That's
first.
not hesitation. We know Val's certainly not one to hesitate. They've got a lovely catch onto Venor, and they'll pick up the Yorick kill. Velia taking his credit there and steps right back to the grubs.
But the point that I was trying to go and make here is the fact that they need all 5 members of Los Ratones here on the top side of the map to make this Void replay happen, whilst in the meantime we see Jeskla just basically having the time of his life on bot lane, no one really there to contest him. Only now when Bowser's teleport gets off cooldown, there's someone to basically stop him, but there's a lot of EXP and gold that basically has been bleeding on the bot side of Los Ratones, whilst they had to make that rotation. The only main difference, of course, being that Jeskla, since he died earlier on, that, well, the CS deficit isn't necessarily that big, but I'd say that in experience there might be some, you know, a little bit of bleeding, which doesn't necessarily help them in getting towards that later stage in the game.
We did see 2 plays in a row, first on the top side of mid, and then on the bot side just by the chickens. KHK trying to set up a trap, trying to set up an aggressive camp in a brush that did get spotted out by Los Ratones, so they're not walking blindly into these dangerous spots. Even when they're deep on their side of the map, they're taking this very cautiously, and they're able to spot 2 plays in a row now. So Hangry Knight's not able to find kind of a trick to trip up Los Ratones. They are taking it at a nice slow pace. They've had good catches when they see the Hangry Knights players rotating out of position, out of top and bot lane. They're not given the advantages of themselves so far. Their failure does, to be fair, get absolutely walloped by Venor on the Yorick.
Well, Velia also knew that Rebel, positioning-wise, was on the other side of the map, so the first thing you do as a jungler is try to make as much use of that as possible, try to empty the enemy jungle while you have the time for that, but I'm also instantly looking at the neutral objective timers that we do see in our top right corner of the map. It's only 30 more seconds until the next dragon, and well, the first one, when we look at the vision score, or like the vision game, it is Reckless who has already prepared a little bit, but since Velia isn't on the right side of the map yet, there's no real way to protect this vision game, so now this is an opportunity for Kaufland to actually take over the vision control over this dragon, which would in turn mean again that Los Ratones have to walk in blind if Kaufland want to be the first one to pull the trigger.
Yeah, walking blind into a Wukong, into a Hui, especially in Ezreal, it's tough going, and you can see Velia stepping over it here. There's a lot of vision all around that area. LR has a great vision coverage right now. Hangry Knights are going to try and clear some of it out, but they might end up in another 3 versus 3 or a 4 versus 3 right now. But now the TP being called in, Nemesis has been subbed in to make this one even, and Hangry Knights are backed right off. Still on vision right now. Reckless flashing in, wants to take advantage. Lovely Magnet Storm. The clone is caught up. Rabble on the edge, holding the shots. Is Crowny, the 4 shot to Wisdom. Barely doesn't find it, but Nemesis is in. Scoops back 1, and Hui goes down. The Azir is traded, but here's the second engage. LR smell blood in the jungle, and they find kill after kill. Another aggressive move, and the vision is so paramount in this game, Sim.
So apparently it was all onto Kaufland to not spot out these signature wards of Los Ratones that they had placed a little bit deeper, and maybe they didn't think that Reckless could have gone there in time with, well, the way that they were moving around the map. But some beautiful preparations coming out from the Reds make sure that in combination with just Reckless knowing when to press that go button, everything else just speaks for itself. Beautiful orchestra of plays, and when we talk about the Infinity Stones, even with Baus lacking, he can just do his thing on mid lane, keep Venor at bay, and the rest of the Reds can just fight it out the way their hearts would like to do that.
Yeah, you can see Velia 4-0 right now, getting stuck in on the Poppy, wasting no time in trying to solve this game. Crowning 1-0-4, and Reckless with another excellent use of vision and engage power on the rail, part of every kill so far. The bot lane is going swimmingly for the Ratones, evening up the Dragons. 1 feat on their side with Warfare, 1 more objective will lock in those triumphant boots if they can find it. And at the very least, as you say, the early game tends to get away from Los Ratones, but not in this game. They've put together a solid plan and execute them very well.
Also, do not be fooled by the overlay a little bit. There is like this one little thing going on that if one team takes 1 grip and the other one takes 2, then like the second team will get their dot. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that they're 2 stages in towards getting those upgraded boots. So yeah. I know that it can be a little bit misleading. I hope that they fix it like in one of the next patches for this overlay. For the very rest, of course, the overlay is very clean to look at. Everything makes sense. So if this is the only thing that is wrong with it, then we will basically take it for what it is. It does mean that there's a little bit more work to be done, right?
Yeah, I'll take one small pip in the wrong place. You know, it took us like this long to get a spectator client that doesn't freeze and bug every single game. So I think we're eating good right now. I'll be honest, I think we're eating good.
Exactly, and of course, well, in the end, it does mean that there's a little bit more work to be done by the Ratones as well, because, well, the Rats, they only have the one dragon, Kaufland has the one dragon, so when the next neutral objective starts spawning, they instantly have to be back on the map. It looks like the next neutral objective is going to be that Rift Herald that will be spawning onto the map in 50 seconds, and now we do see that whilst the last dragon fight, there was a lot of vision coverage already from the Rats, there's now a lot of vision coverage already by Kaufland. When Baus is getting traded a little bit, like he's getting pushed out of his lane, and these cats are really annoying to deal with.
Yeah, it is just maximum irritation coming through from New York. Skips out of the cage, but takes another rough trade trying to get back. Gives more or less as good as he gets, but the ghouls step in to tip it in Venor's favor as well. But we can see already that the Eclipse is in, and they're not going as badly as they were before. The lane was pretty tragic for Baus. He is stabilizing a bit. Velia with another stun, Reckless over the wall, of course, to follow it up. There's the Keeper's Verdict. The tank's doing the damage. Rabble ignited, barely trying to slip away. He is going to survive, and Reckless now the one in a bit of danger as KHK come around the corner. Wisdom finds it. Nemesis, Velia dropping low. Los Ratones, they couldn't find the target they needed, and they're the ones losing 2 players.
And in my opinion, the unsung hero of this fight is basically Jaskla. Because normally we don't necessarily see AD carries make themselves jump in front of their tanks or like their supports to help and save their lives, but Jaskla's positioning, making sure he was also in between the curtain call shots, so there was no way for Crown Shot to also pick up Rebel, was an amazing play of like map awareness, knowing where to go as an AD carry, not necessarily to deal maximum damage, but to also make sure that the rest of your team doesn't falter because of it. And Jaskla just shows that it also can mean the immediately turnaround of a fight, because now they actually get the pick onto Velia instead of the other way around, missing onto Rebel, and then the entirety of Lost Ratones pulling out again. No, now they have to overchase, get into a situation where they're not necessarily super comfortable, and you can turn such a fight around. So that is actually really beautifully played.
Wonderful answer by the Hangry Knights, not going down quietly. They know what's at stake right now. And despite the fact that, yes, Baus has managed to stabilize somewhat in top lane, it was a big shutdown that went down for Velia, picked up by the carries of Kaufland. Let's see how they want to play out the rest of this. Now that we have Rabble approaching level 11, we haven't seen too much aggressive play out of him. It's been mostly reactionary. It's been Velia and Reckless really dictating the pace of this game out of the bot side of the map. So I'm wondering when we're going to see Kaufland activate. We're going to see Wisdom and Rabble try to find their way back in. Because so far, Los Ratones have been able to stifle them in the act. But now Baus, maybe, on the wrong side of town, separates himself once again. Maybe try and dash over the wall. Actually just going for the 1v1 on Rabble. And of course, that Wukong not looking too good after that previous fight. But we'll have to go down bot lane. There's a dive, a foot sim. Reckless calling the shots once again. They don't have any damage. Now Velia with the stun. Nemesis sliding in with the Emperor's Divide to pick up that first kill. Baus fell on top side. But LR are finding the kills down bot. Nemesis falls under the tower. Wisdom cannot dodge the crowny shots. And that's a 2-for-2 across the map.
Slight miscommunication there, probably between Nemesis and Velia, in who was going to take that final tower shot, because, well, I feel like Velia probably could have taken that. Nemesis in the end goes down to it. But hey, in the end, Los Ratones is, of course, a team that the moment that multiple players get pulled toward one side by Baus, they have to make the cross-map play happen. And in this scenario, we do instantly see once again that trigger being pulled, Reckless the first one going in, and the follow-up just cleanly following as well. It's just that the execution in the end could have been a little bit more flawless. But we're in a game 2. We also know that there's probably a lot of nerves, knowing that this can be your elimination game for Los Ratones as well. So 2-for-2 is the best that you can take out of such a situation in the very end.
Yeah, I didn't even notice Reckless going down at the start, so it ends up as a 3-for-2 in the favor of Hangry Knights as well. So again, it's Los Ratones. They're making aggressive plays. I like that Velia has gotten very fed early and is trying to push that lead. He's a very aggressive jungler in his prime, in his comfort zone. But ultimately, it seems like now we're starting to lose as much as we gain, and Baus now about to be the recipient of a potential 4-man dive right now. Velia's trying to get their public execution, though, actually just skates him right out of danger. The turret, definitely still not long for this world, and the charge might come through for the Herald onto this inner turret, but LR, they've had time to get in position. Maybe they can rebuff them.
We do see exactly the same tactics coming out from Hangry Knights, knowing that Baus can be a link that you can target, which Los Ratones has some issues with. Okay.
Onto Crowdy, who survives for now at the very least, but Baus is the one caught up on the front line. Rabble just steers the Herald into the wall, but gets himself out of danger right there. It's not going to find another charge, but still another kill. After all that, Baus still goes down.
The Rift Herald is basically a multi-purpose tool by now. It's not just there to make sure that the tower goes down. Sometimes you can get yourself into a fairly tricky situation, and well, getting yourself a Get Out of Jail free card is really nice to have. It is just... It feels kind of off from Los Ratones when it comes to their positioning, and like normally it feels like they have like a better understanding in what stage of the game is and whether they can let a tower go or not. But now with the nerfs once again, also the weight on their shoulders, knowing that this can be an elimination game, you maybe want to chew off a little bit more than you can actually get. Trying to hold some tower pushes that in the end are basically impossible, and with Nemesis also putting some pressure on top side, yes, it is nice that you get like one tower out of it, but you're giving so much more back with the kill on Baus and I believe the flash on Crowny as well. It's really difficult now with the resources that you still have available to yourself to start and contest the neutral objectives that are really important for a win condition on Los Ratones when it comes to team fighting.
Yeah, and we're coming down to the 20-minute mark as a Ambessa ultimate traded for a Yorick Flash. Nice little catch attempt by Los Ratones. Nothing lost on their side, really. But ultimately, yeah, we're 20 minutes in now. Atakan is live. Baron in 5 minutes. Dragon in 2.5. We can't afford to be throwing away objectives at this point in the game. The Atakan started basically on spawn by the Hangry Knights. In come Los Ratones, rotating as fast as they can.
Yeah, teleport coming in from Baus. He doesn't have his ultimate quite yet available, but they do have to fight soon.
Reckless caught on the flank, the Crowny ultimate from way back, and the Atakan's been taken. Rabble was knocked away, but not in time to deny the objective, and now Los Ratones still on the front line, thinking if they want some more Hangry Knights, look like they might be ready to stand toe-to-toe. Crowny fishing with a deadly flourish, cannot hit them up, but KHK, they've already got what they came for. They've got the Atakan, they can walk away.
They got completely out-macroed there from a Los Ratones standpoint. The initial teleport already coming down from Venner is something that you may not expect, because, well, Yorick with the Maiden of the Mist, you normally see him on a side lane, try to make some pressure happen, maybe change the fact that Baus has to stay on the side lane and you're fighting a 4v4 on the other side of the map. But just knowing how far this Yorick is already ahead, well, even though in theory it is only 500 gold, but maybe on the Rift it feels like an awful lot more with an extra member, the Maiden of the Mist, basically turning a fight into a 5v6. It is really scary for a team like Los Ratones to actually approach that, and the moment they do decide to actually take the fight, then the fight is basically already over, because the Atakan is already on such low HP threshold that it can be easily secured by Rebel, and there's no real answer from the Rats. So now we're basically waiting for the Rats to see a play that does have impact, or else there is also an opportunity for a game state where Kaufland is permanently the team to make a play first, and Los Ratones just waiting until they bleed out, which is not something that you'd like to see from the Reds. Most notably with Reckless, who is actively looking for these plays, but also having a lot of difficulties in finding the opening.
Yeah, he's really still, you can see him still fishing for a vision advantage to play, but now Hangry Knights have gotten themselves in order. They've gotten a pink line that they can play around, and the poke coming out of Jeskla with the True Shot Barrage, with random dropping lightning bolts to follow it up as well. Crowny was dropped to half before he could really get stuck into anything, and that is the risk. If Los Ratones is trying to play around these vision lines, they're trying to push into a very annoying composition. Baus might be about to get caught out again, gets away from the Wisdom ultimate and actually will just slip away. Just looking for damage. Rabble as well thinking about it, but Ambessa, mobile as ever, will not get caught out.
Yeah, so that does mean that Los Ratones will be the first one on the Dragon. The initial pick-off on Baus is not successful. And that might actually be the difference maker for the Hangry Knights to not be able to take this fight at face value. I must say that the True Shot Barrage is already off cooldown, because, well, the moment you start hitting those Mystic Shots, the cooldown isn't necessarily that long. But we see a lot of ultimates available on both sides, a really important flash on all of the carries, so we do get ourselves some great setup to start fighting.
And with the ult, again looking for Rabble, but the clone has already got him out of danger. Wisdom's going to tank it up for Jeskla. Takes 4, but only takes a little bit. Hwei has managed to cut that bot wave. I like the choice by Los Ratones to try and split the focus of Kaufland, but ultimately, KHK, they dealt with it in a very conservative, well-minded manner. They did not lose their heads, and they managed to get back here, and now a TP in from Hwei. In fact, they're trying to pull the trigger on this Drake. It's not even a sole point, but Los Ratones again going in. Reckless finds one, but not that much on the front line. He's surely going to go down. Wisdom traded, and Baus now. There's a knockaway. Welia has removed one of the threats. Rabble again, but it was just the clone. Half HP, and Nemesis still on the flank. Los Ratones A good position in the pit right now. The Maiden's still there. It's going to come down to a smite fight. In comes Nemesis. Another pickup, and Nemesis goes down without even getting to press a button. It's a disaster for Los Ratones. No objective, no flank, and they're running for the hills.
This is, of course, a disaster for Los Ratones, because even with the absolute perfection in positioning when it comes to Nemesis, he was permanently looking for that flank, trying to get as many carries as possible with a possible Shurima shuffle, but the instant response from Random, opening up his scary spellbook and fearing him the moment he tries to go for his combo, is a disaster for Los Ratones to actually deal with, and the entire plan just falls apart, and we once again see Kaufland just take up the upper hand again, something that we didn't expect with the setup that Los Ratones was actually giving themselves.
That was a setup where you could feel the experience that Los Ratones has. They were playing it so well, they were giving themselves such a good chance, but even then, Hangry Knights, they just outplay in the moment. They end up going to a flipped dragon, but they're the ones winning the smite fight. They're the ones with the clutch mechanical outplay in the moment. And that is just not something that we normally see against the Rats. They are now once again struggling to break back after a strong early game. 1.5k down, still very playable. They're still finding angles and creating good situations, but they're going to have to bring all of their powers to bear to try and defeat Kaufland here.
Keep in mind that this is the second dragon that has been stolen from Los Ratones, so like in theory speaking, they could have been on Soul Point already. They could have given themselves the Mountain Soul already, but nope. In reality, we are seeing a 2-2 split when it comes to dragons, so also a lot of postponement when it comes to a potential Elder Dragon spawning. And I felt like last game it came down to that Elder Dragon smite fight, and even though it was Crowny who was the one who secured the Elder Dragon, the fight still didn't necessarily go in their favor, and they still lost out to Kaufland Hangry Knights in game 1. So you don't want such a situation to be created again. It does get postponed this way, but I also don't really feel like with the amount of tempo that Kaufland is basically owning themselves, it is easy to find another solution as Los Ratones to maybe have something like a Dragon Soul for yourself to make things easier to fight. Because like you said, there is a lot of experience seen in the setup they're currently doing. It's just a lot of micro plays that are going wrong, and they're being outplayed, just hand-checked by Kaufland.
Yeah, Los Ratones now, again, trying to take up aggressive positions in the Baron River. Again, a lovely vision line. They've got set up nice and early. KHK with more focusing on the bot side. Random may be caught out, though. No flash on this guy. If they can get into range, Nemesis looking for it. Reckless around the corner. Lovely stun into wall from Belia, and that's going to be a clean pickup on the way. Bit of damage onto Nemesis, but he's safe for now. The rotation from Kaufland cannot find an answer.
It took a lot of time for Kaufland to get everyone over there, so this is one of those pickoffs that they really need to get tempo back into the game. And you also see that because of that, the gold deficit that was like 1.5k for Kaufland has now been diminished to like 1000 gold again, because at the same time we're playing the macro fairly well Los Ratones side.
Nemesis, oh my goodness, flashes the wall but misses the ultimate. Surely will pick up Venora on the backside, but again, it's looking a little messy, a little sketchy for Los Ratones now. We cannot deny they still got to pick in the side lane, got to pick in the other side lane. They have managed to actually devise a pretty sizable gold swing off just these two plays, but I'm still seeing a little bit of inefficacy. It's not quite as clean as I think it might need to be to take the Hangry Knights down when they are playing so well in those important clutch moments. The map is Los Ratones, but the fights have been for Kaufland.
It does draw a little bit of a comparison back to the first series they've had against each other, because the first round of this EMEA match they also faced each other again. That time around it was a 2-0 for Los Ratones, and whilst Kaufland is one of those teams that really can get themselves ahead in the early stages, making sure that people get picked off, Los Ratones still has that veterancy in knowing how to farm up, how to still get their experience back, just the individual differences. And we now see on some of the players, most notably of course Crownshot and Nemesis, like they're the players who can fairly easily get themselves into a CS discrepancy that makes them fairly far ahead and maybe make up for some of the mistakes that the other players in their team make. And that is something that the more often that happens, and the more they can bring out that deficit in basically in contrast to the enemies not being able to get that back, of course, you will always outskill, and that does show that they can basically bring themselves to that later stage, to that later game, where Kaufland, they can get ahead early, but keeping grasp of their tempo is really difficult when playing in these kind of players.
Yeah, I'm Just checking out the way the builds have developed right now, with the gold now slightly in LR's favor, as they've started the Baron, by the way, just as an update for everybody. It is going to get checked by the Ezreal ult, so Kaufland can respond. Now LR, are we going to stick it? Are we going to smite fight again? That has not been going your way today. Belia's going to peel off. I know that seems like a bad idea. Baus looking for damage on the front line. Wisdom down to half. Crowny roots onto Venor, but random over the wall with a big way ultimate. Reckless has to get out of there. He can't lock them up anymore. Baus is doing what he can in the thick of it, but the Crowny ultimate as well slows down Kaufland. It's very tense in the mid lane. Just looks for more. Nemesis is in. It's traded. Baus now can punish the Hui coming out of stasis. Oh my word, the clutch plays again. 2 for 2, but HK are straight onto the dragon.
They instantly saw that the rest of the fight was lost, and they just hoped that Random and Jeffstra could salvage the part that they could do. But no, it's Los Ratones that also starts knocking through this door. Is this a fight you even want to take?
Well, has Crowny, he's already had to drop the cleanse. He needs to stay safe in this fight. Baus doing what he can once again. Velia not quite there yet. Venor has taken down the Ambessa. What can Crowny do with the execute? Flashes out of the cage. Rapples in. One more Q will do it, but the knock up from Velia. Crowny has fallen. The jungler's going at it, looking for a wall stun, but he slides to safety. Rabble will skip back to the mid lane turret.
Okay, so now I do feel like there's still a little bit of panic in the play of Los Ratones, because even after they disengage that play on mid lane fairly well, it's not like you're playing a comp where if your opponent jumps into you further the moment that your initial engage doesn't necessarily go that well, that it's really easy to play out. So I felt like killing Random and Jeskla is basically the max that you can take out of this trade, but Crowny just walking up, instantly calling for the TP of Baus and Velia, not necessarily being in the position to instantly help answer, feels like it is still out of sync in a way that Kaufland can just keep doing the dragon, instantly turn around, and once again take down 2 major threats from Los Ratones who would have been really nice to still have on the map, but now we're basically forced off fairly hard and making them once again sit in a position that also the approach to the Baron isn't necessarily the easiest.
Kaufland again, taking up positions in the river. Reckless and Nemesis trying to posture themselves a little bit, and again, it looks like we're just going for the ARAM against him. It feels like we're just going for fight after fight. The side lanes abandoned. Even the Yorick doesn't seem to care too much for them at this point. Always wants to be there ready for the team. And to be fair, one massive Reckless Nemesis engage could mean the Baron. If all the players from KHK aren't there, they might lose the control, the loose control they currently have on this series. Of course, Los Ratones still slightly ahead in this game. The fights are now going too close to call. Baus has started to get unlocked in, and the Ambessa started to come online. Crowny still doing an excellent job. Nemesis, when he stays alive, has got so much damage in the inventory. It's very, very tense around the Baron right here.
I believe they've also spotted out that there's a nice split between players of Los Ratones. There's 2 players on the mid side, whilst there are 3 on the other side, so you can just collapse on them as 5, and that is the plan that Hangry Knights want to follow.
There's them looking for it, but he can't clip them with the Solar Eclipse. No slows for LR, and they can reposition. An ult off the board for KHK. Rabble to try and punish LR as they try to reposition. Still got the root, but a flash away from Wisdom. They've actually found the jungle in the front line. Can they lock him up for the first time? There it is! Belly with the killing spree. Wisdom abandoned. Crowny's shot lands true. And LR, for the first time in a long time, get a clean win with no downside.
This is for now how the trade has ended, but we know that if you start Baron, there isn't necessarily the reason why Hangry Knights would not stop contesting this. They know that they have a lot of artillery. You have an Ezreal and a Wei. They can just stay on the... They can keep their distance and make sure you get poked out, but even that's not enough.
Velia got it. Random was dropping very low on mana, and Jessler couldn't find the angle. No roots from Venor, and Los Ratones with a second wind in this second game. Now up to 4k ahead. They have the Baron to try and protect them on these pushes. And now we can't simply all go 5-sim and just fight it out and hope we're better in the moment. Now we need to manage the side lanes. We need to get the pushes going cleanly. It's a new challenge for LR, but one they have seen before. And they need to stabilize right here. It's got to be so pressurized for them. You can't go from the championship to drowning in groups without some questions being asked. And they need to shepherd this game in cleanly if they're going to have hope of it.
And of course, Los Ratones will have answers in the end. Like, we know that they've taken the Baron now. They should be able to exert a lot of pressure with that. And now I'm just wondering what the answer from the Hangry Knights is going to be. Because we have seen them, of course, cap them in team fights. And there are still possibilities to overload one side of the map, try to get a pick onto Nemesis, or if The Reds are going for a 1-3-1 execution, which they currently are not doing. They're going for the 4-1 execution. Well, then you'd say just overload on Nemesis, try to make sure you get someone out there, and then start defending mid again. But Kaufland has other ideas. They are sending a Yorick over to the top lane, because what does Yorick do best? Split push, and if there's no one there to stop them with the Baron buff, then maybe you can start a little bit of a base race?
Here we go with the 2-lane push. KHK moving as a unit, a little gank squad looking for anyone, putting a toe out of line. And Venor, in fact, now the Yorick is coming into its own. Crashing through that top lane tower. LR trying to use the quick Baron recalls. They will get back to base, so should be able to save that and hit the tower. Maybe not long for this world. Nemesis wants to commit to it. Gets a flash out for the ultimate. Lovely little pick by Nemesis. No hesitation from the Azir.
I wonder if Venor could have actually started contesting that, but no, we're now seeing double TP incoming mid, knowing that Nemesis isn't there yet, but we're not getting anything out of that except for the position. Oh, and they know where Nemesis is because of the blue ward.
Oh, but it's a route onto Rabble once again. This worked well for them, clearing out the jungle before anything starts, and Nemesis takes the credit. Bouse holding Venor at arm's length. Random tries to solve it, but he can't get his hands on the Ambessa. Yorick chasing the Bouse down. Reckless looking for an angle. Finally, the Ambessa's locked in the cage, and Random will claim his man. 1-for-1 so far. It's top for jungle, but the Dragon for LR. We're going to a 7 Drake games here.
You cannot just relinquish this dragon over to your opponent if you're Los Ratones in this scenario. Like, you cannot just give them that soul for free. So Bouse, he's just going to be the sacrifice required to make that happen. But look at the amount of pressure that the Hangry Knights can get over mid lane because of that. It is really nice that they maybe cannot get the inhib, so there's no free pressure for the Baron. We're just even starting a
lovely
fight.
engage by Belia. Double knock off on both the carries. Random has to go to stasis. Jessica ease away. Visdom's going to get caught up. Crowny can deal with this Leona.
Oh, Velia.
And the rest of the stuns come through. Random now caught. KHK with a very aggressive shove down mid. But they get run down by the rats and they only lose more for it.
Yeah, and maybe you would have thought with that mid lane play that if Hangry Knights can actually get out of this unscathed, it is fairly easy to set yourself up a winning position with either the Baron flip or Venor once again starting a split push. Then
Nemesis.
it's like the super
He's
minions
got
are
the
in,
ult
but
back.
no.
Just in time to engage
He's
the
fine.
1v3 that Nemesis is low-key handling right now. KHK, what a turn in the waters. Crowley with an ult across the bow. Can he pick up any of these members? Could open the door for a game win. He's trying to backstep it. He gets out of the Venor.
Oh, look at
He's
Neme.
been jiggle peeking too long, and Nemesis comes in for the credit. The turrets are starting to fall.
Neme is never in a 1v3 situation. He has his sand soldiers to back him up, so that makes it an even
Exactly.
situation. You know that.
LR now retreating out of the base, not going to overstay their welcome, but they take the inhib down in mid lane and grow their lead. It has quietly hit the 8k mark almost, when it feels like they are still having to be so careful. Every fight feels like it's on a knife edge, but they're starting to pick off Rabble consistently on the front line. And without that Wukong threatening Crowny, it feels like it's so much easier for LR to play these fights out.
It's mostly that, like, some of the biggest deficits coming in now, looking at the gold deficits between players. I see a 4,000 gold lead of Crowny over Random, and of course a 2.6k gold lead from Crowny over Jaskla. These are of course the main carries from Los Ratones, who have like such a big lead over their instant counterpart that it is really difficult to find a good play in a 5v5 situation. I would have expected Hangry Knight to maybe collapse onto a single person some more often, but Visdom's ultimates, the solo flares, aren't really connecting in the moment that it's most crucial for them to actually hit them, and that basically puts them now into a situation where you are 7,000 gold behind against the rats, and you still are forced to look for opportunities to maybe make a pick here or there. But the way that Los Ratones is currently grouping, and it's mostly either Bouse or Nemesis, who both have like great escape abilities in their kit to make sure nothing really happens, just makes it really difficult for the Hangry Knights to find that possibility.
Ratones now clearing out vision on the top side, heading towards top lane as well. Obviously going to shepherd in that super minion wave to make sure it's knocking on the door by the time they're looking for mid. They can maybe keep the Yorick under wraps this way, but they've got to be oh so careful. The vision lines have been so important this game. Jeskla contesting with Reckless, Crowny as well fighting with Rabble, gradually inching forward the Los Ratones vision line, but they can't do it forever, and KHK stepping up now, muscling their way back in. And again, Los Ratones have to give them respectful space.
They are in the position, they know that they really want to fight over this Baron. It's either a pick or a fight.
Okay, well, a couple of ults went kind of down the drain there. Wisdom tweaked into a reflexive ultimate onto Crowny, stepping forward. He had the flash and cleanse, held them both, and the Baron now live. And Los Ratones, they might not have control of all the topside vision, but they do have the pit under control.
And we see a Hex Flash coming out from Velia and two people walking up way further than they should in the mid lane.
One to Yorick though, and Yorick does not have a way to get out of this one. Bouncy is in deep, he's in the 1 versus 4. He's massive on the Ambessa right now, gets away from the wave, just about no random tags him. The 1-for-1. And Venor managed to escape from all of that nonsense, so it's Wisdom for Baus at the end of it.
Yeah, Baus, of course, wants to go really deep, making sure that no one can instantly collapse on the rest of their backline while they're trying to whittle it out back to front. But I don't know if it's necessarily worth it. If you give over your life, you're also like one Baron buff going to miss out, but or like that you're going to miss out on. Then again, it is an 8,500 gold lead. So maybe it's just a little bit of an over-exaggeration, and all that we have to look at right now is the next dragon fight, because the next dragon will be on the map in 20 seconds. Crowny, maybe a little bit, I want to say awkward positioning, but no one is really in the position to fight the other player, because we don't know where the other teams currently are.
Yes.
Los Ratones is going to be first.
Yep, I mean, the Nemesis damage on Baron knocked it away very quickly. Let's see that Velia and Crowny couldn't make it work last time, but they got the 2-person Baron down, and now they could threaten to do the same here. Reckless, Crowny, they were very good at holding down that front line, but Kaufland are assembled in this river. Crowny has to flash away straight away from the Rabble ultimate, and a flash from Velia too to escape Wisdom. It's a little messy right now, but KHK, they are standing together, and Los Ratones spread across the river looking for an opening.
We also see a teleport incoming from Nemesis. He wants to end the game whilst the rest is fighting.
Oh, Nemesis going for the end. That's why KHK are going to be in a bit of disarray. Wisdom on the front line going to get picked apart by Crowny. Reckless is in to lock them down. A stun on the wall from Velia. Los Ratones put KHK's head on a swivel, and Nemesis is going for the end, but Venor and Random are going to find him, not before the trade! Nemesis takes down one, he's looking for two, flash away from the Yorick goes Golden, and Velia and the rest of Los Ratones are picking apart Kaufland. Nemesis strikes in the base, 2v1, tower is down, Los Ratones stay in the series.
I do feel that if we're talking about any team, it is basically only Los Ratones who have it in them to make such a decision to just instantly put your enemy in front of a gambit. Like,